I am Nate Carruth, and this is my wife, Trish. We've been married for June will be 36 years. So it sounds like a really big number. It does sneak up on you a little bit.
Surprises us even sometimes.
Right, but we're reminded when we see our kids and now our grandchildren that, that's a real number.
Yeah.
So
I remember hearing people say 36 or 40 years and thinking, oh my gosh, that's forever.
So long.
And that's us now.
Here we are.
Yay.
But it's amazing to reflect on those years. And you don't remember each one specifically, but we do have very fond memories of our relationship growth over that time. Because over time, whether you know it or not, you as an individual will change. Your personality develops and grows within a marriage, and it's partly due to the influence of your spouse that causes you to change.
Yeah.
In addition to, the Holy Spirit and God's Word, just plowing into your life, new thoughts and new concepts and things that you should practice as, in my case, the leader of the family. Yeah. So it's fun to look back on that and go, wow, we've actually grown as a couple. Yeah. It's not a stagnant relationship.
Had our ups and downs.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I'm the one thing I want to get across in this discussion is that, within the context of God's creation and his plan for marriage, I am the man in the relationship, and I have a larger responsibility than my wife in making sure together we are taking steps in that direction toward what we want to call a successful marriage. So it's more on my shoulders than on her shoulders. And I've learned that through reading Proverbs hundreds of times and, just praying through some of the challenges in our relationship. And I'm always reminded by the Holy Spirit that, I'm in charge here as far as making this marriage work. You've heard it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And it does. But ultimately, God's looking at me as the more responsible person for a successful marriage. And that's a concept that I try to share with young men as we talk about marriage.
So we should go back and talk about how we met and stuff. But while you're on that, the thing that, if you get to know Nate, the thing that you'll get to see is his kindness. That he is, besides taking that responsibility, he's developed a kindness toward me that is insurmountable. And we teach our girls, and oftentimes the women that come into our home as young adults, that when you're looking for that mate, look for that characteristic of kindness deep down, because Nate was kind. That's one constant, even though we have changed. A constant in his character was his kindness toward me when we first got married, or even when we were dating, the flowers that would show up in my car at the school where I taught. There was a kindness there, and that kindness has lasted our entire lifetime. And it's made our marriage so much sweeter. It's
also thoughtfulness. Naturally, I don't lean into, flowers and cards and things like that. I've had to train myself.
He grew up with
that.
4 boys.
Had 3 brothers and no sisters. So, learning her likes and dislikes was important early in our marriage, and also her love language, which is affirmation. Something that I'm not great at either. And I to this day, I practice that when she's around.
And sometimes I ask for it. I say,
and that's
I kind of
okay.
need some affirmation.
I'm okay with that. I need those reminders that she needs words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And my gift is service.
What?
And sometimes I remind her of that.
Well, and I actually was thinking about that it's one of the things that I've come to try to do because he likes acts of service. I'm better at words of affirmation, because that's my love language. But I remember a time in our marriage where I was learning that, And I'd have to ask him every day, so how can I serve you, honey? What can I do today? And literally he'd tell me, and I do it because it made us stronger. It was really sweet. So we've grown in that way. We're not just stuck in who we were way back, but we've developed because of the other person's weakness. It's part of that completing one another. He completes me and I complete him. And I've grown in areas that he's strong in. He's grown in areas that I'm strong in. We've sharpened each other.
We have indeed.
Iron sharpens iron.
Right.
And that may have been for men, but it works in a marriage too.
It does. It really does.
Tell how we met.
Well, we met through a church group. And I'm not saying that's
young adults.
The only way it works.
It was called College and Career.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was playing racquetball with a mutual friend, and she thought that maybe Trish and Nate should get together. She knew Trish independently and then knew me independently, and said, you guys should meet. So thankfully, she kind of put us together. We met at a group meeting to plan a ski trip to Winter Park. And that was the first time we laid eyes on each other. And I thought she was pretty attractive, Of course, that's, that's part of it is you look at people initially on the outside. You haven't met the inside yet.
Yeah.
But she was, outgoing, vivacious, very personable, and I didn't meet anybody that didn't like her, so that was a good sign. So we got to know each other during the course of that ski trip, basically, and we carved out some individual time to be together. I picked you up at the airport, right?
So on that ski trip, he picked me up at the airport because I came in a day late. I had to teach
that was it.
School, and so he had planned a nice dinner, kind of. We went just to a Pizza Hut, but it was still
just
really fun.
One-on-one, though.
Yeah, one-on-one. Yeah. And the fun part about this story is the first time he asked me out, I had been... I was in a Bible study group with both men and women, and we were rotating who we were meeting with. So I was going out with different guys to meet. It wasn't that I was dating them, but I did have a date on the night that he called me to ask me out. And so he said, can you go out? It was like a Friday night. I'll take you out to dinner. And I thought for a minute, what do I say? I'm going to wash my hair? I hadn't had that happen very often. So I finally just kind of had to say, well, I actually have a date that night, but I could go out Saturday if you want. And the thing that really attracted me to Nate, because I was such a free spirit back then, and still am somewhat, but he said, well, you know what? We've seen each other, we've met. I like you. I'm interested in you. I think if you're at all interested in me, you should break your date and go out with me instead. And
thankfully she did.
I did. Because I thought, this is the kind of man I need. I knew myself enough to know that I'm a free spirit and I can take over leadership of things and just kind of bulldoze my way in if I need to in a nice way. But I knew that I wanted a man that was really strong enough to wear the pants in the family. And the fact that he put his foot down right on that first date made me go, oh my gosh, this guy, he's got some gall.
Apparently she had not seen that in the seminary students she had been dating.
I know. Yeah, I hadn't. And then what was really sweet was we went out. We did go out that night for the Friday night. I canceled the date with the other fella, and we had a really nice dinner. And the other part that I really liked is we didn't drink much in those days. It was, back in the 80s, I especially didn't drink much, but he asked me at the end of the date if I'd like to go to his apartment for a nightcap. And I thought I was in a 50s movie because I was like...
I learned that from Humphrey Bogart. I didn't drink at all at that time.
No. So we were both... I thought, well, this is really interesting. He's like a hopeless old... I feel like I'm walking in an old movie going to get a nightcap. we got to his apartment. The first thing you noticed was there was no furniture in the living room, just a weight bench, which was awesome. There was, he brought out a bucket of sparkling champagne and 2 champagne glasses, and we sat in front of the fireplace on the floor and just had some sparkling champagne. And I was like, not only is he firm, but he's super sweet, and he's planned out this whole date because he didn't know if I'd say yes or no, but he had planned it out. And it was so fun and so refreshing and so surprising. I'd never met anyone like Nate. And I think we even looked at scriptures that night, or we started to talk about spiritual things. And the other thing that was, I thought, so cool about Nate was that I had grown up in discipleship programs, so I knew a lot of scriptures and new stuff. And Nate, when he would look at the scriptures and teach, he knew those same things, but he knew them because the Holy Spirit had taught him in his own study of the Word. And he didn't grow up in the discipleship program per se, but he knew Jesus in a deep, deep way that also was refreshing because he didn't speak the same maybe Christianese, but he had the same principles and the deep heart and the kingdom.
And that's so important for people that are looking for that, lifelong relationship, that you need to get your heart right with God first before, because getting connected with someone, a partner, a spouse, is not going to do that for you. You must arrive on your own in your relationship with Christ and be strong in that relationship if you're going to have a positive influence on those around you.
Yeah. I think going into dating and our relationship, the expectation was that this is going to take work. I could marry Nate or I could marry someone else, but God would direct that, and whoever it was, we would be committed. I was old enough to know I'm going to be committed to this for my entire life, the good, the bad, the ugly. And luckily it was mostly good.
We talked about that early on in our marriage. We agreed that divorce is not an option for us. Yeah. It never will be. As hard as it may get, that's not an option for this marriage. So
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna go back to
when that came in, that topic.
Maybe not.
Oh,
what are you thinking?
So we met in November, started dating in December. In January, and it's because in January he said he loved me, which I did not respond right away. I just nodded and was like, wow, that's nice. That's okay. Nice. So I had to go home and think about it. Like, do I love this guy? We just met. It just seems like it's moving really fast. So I gave it a little bit of time. And then I felt like I was ready to say I love you too. So that happened in January. We were engaged by March and we married in June. So it was really a 6-month whirlwind from January to June, and we were newly married and still getting to know each other.
Indeed.
And hadn't learned all the kind of things, and we were putting together some furniture. We moved into a house, and I remember, I think because I had, I'll just say this, I'd gone on the pill, so I was super emotional too. And I remember at one point I was like, what have we done? We got married so fast. Did I make the right decision? I think some of that was the emotions of it all happening so quick and catching up, because Nate was so kind even back then, and we were very much in love. But that's when I said, should we get a divorce before we go too far? I remember, and Nate came in, held me, and said, we're never going to say that. We're never going to have this conversation again. We are committed to one another. Mm-hmm. I will never divorce you. You will never divorce me, and we're going to make this work. So what do you need from me? And we talked it through, but that happened in the first year of our marriage, really the first several months. Mm-hmm. And then I always knew that he gave me that security that through the good or the bad, and really there hasn't been, we've been very blessed in that there's not a lot of bad, but there have been hard hard times and hard years.
And along those lines, given the quick, schedule that we moved through there over 6 months, we realized that was faster than normal. Because her sister, I think, had dated for
7 years.
7 years.
She was so mad that we got married.
Yeah, she was.
But I was the older sister, so it seemed appropriate.
Right. Yeah. God saved the day there.
Yeah.
So, but we realized we needed training.
Yeah.
And we began to look around for opportunity to have people feed into our marriage the things that we needed, that whether we knew we needed it or not, we needed to grow together. So for the next 5 years, we committed to going to a marriage conference, a getaway, long weekend type conference where we could focus on just our marriage and hear from the experts how your marriage should look at this time and place and what you can do to strengthen your weaknesses. So that was an excellent commitment that we made early on.
Highly recommend doing that, because that foundation, it's kind of what we've rested on for these 36 years.
Yeah.
Is those 5 years of really getting good teaching. And the sweet part about that too is that it would give us, we knew there would be a safe forum to talk through the things that were difficult. And it just brought us close together. The other thing it did was we'd be like, wow, we're doing a lot of things right. And it would reaffirm those things and just, again, strengthen where we were already strong. So it was powerful to do that.
Right.
I'm glad we did.
And it's so important to do that before you reach the kids. Start having children and things get super busy, super crazy, really fast. And getting away for a weekend marriage conference
can be harder.
Is not
doable,
ideal
and we
when
did
you've
do
got
a few
little
of them.
ones running around.
Yeah.
It's so much more difficult. So getting that done early is fantastic.
Yeah. That was fun. One of the things, even when we sat down to think about doing this, that I thought of immediately, one of the lessons we learned from that was that men have a tendency to want to fix the emotions that the wife is feeling. Yeah. So if let's say I'm frustrated about something, he'd come in and he'd give me advice.
Right.
And in one of those marriage conferences early on, we learned that when I'm in the puddle and he wants to give me that hand out of the puddle, instead, if he can just come and sit in the puddle with me, and he kind of can sit in there, encourage me, let me say what I'm feeling and thinking, and then together we can kind of climb out of the puddle together. And that was a significant revelation for me. In fact, it's easier to do than trying to fix a problem that she presents, because it's like, hey, I don't have to fix this now. I just kind of jump in the puddle with her, make her feel secure, which is my job, and we'll get through this together. And it works every time. It's like magic, I can tell you. Well, yeah, it does. It works. I would say that he jumped in a puddle with me last year, pretty deep puddle. I was just struggling with some insecurities of my own, and he listened and got in the puddle, cried with me, which was really sweet, and we were able to overcome that hurdle. And my hurt was healed. So Jesus is good.
As newly marrieds, getting the right training early is so important, because life's going to throw issues at you beyond your relationship with your spouse. You're going to have family tragedies and all kinds of things, job loss, whatever. You're going to get bombarded anyway. So if you can establish that foundation in your marriage early on, you can take those hits a lot easier. And we walk through everything together. That's really important.
So I thought, I think little rituals are important in relationship. They help define who you are. So who are we as Carruths? one of the things that I think some of those rituals have been really important to us. So, for example, whenever we pray, whether we're in small group or we're in church, we always hold hands. And so if we're in a small group and I'm across the room, Nate either comes to me or I go to him and we stand together to pray. We're one. So we always hold hands. And I remember one time we had a fight coming to church, had words together. And we were sitting there, and I remember they go to pray, and I'm like, I'm not going to hold his hand. And here comes his hand.
Yep.
In the middle of the fight,
We can fight later.
You can fight later. He
We're
pulled
gonna
it
pray
over.
right now.
And I mean, it was just so sweet. But then that, and then the kiss hello and the kiss goodbye. I can't remember when that I probably came up in one of those marriage seminars that you always make that contact. And so we've done that. So he can't leave the house even if he's mad at me without coming and giving me a kiss or vice versa. And ladies, I mean a real kiss. So I try to still, even at 36 years, sometimes he's like, okay, enough already. Because I think it's important. I think it's fun too. So those little rituals define kind of who you are, and you need those kind of things in the relationship. So those are two. When the kids were little, it was always maybe other wives do this, but always greeting your husband, but always getting the kids really riled up right before he walks in the door. So they're like, Daddy, Daddy. That was always fun. And I remember I had gotten busy or was stressed about things, and there was maybe a week when we lived in the Peach House where I had fallen off doing that, and Nate came and told me, I need you to do that. That means a lot to me. And so we picked that right back up. So that also reminds me that I can't know. You think that because you're one, or this is maybe a preconceived idea about marriage, is that because we're one, I'll know what he's thinking. You do not know, and he does not know what I'm thinking. And so you have to communicate those things. You have to say, honey, I need this from you. I can think he knows that I'm emotional and he needs to get in the puddle with me, but sometimes I have to say, I just need you to get in the puddle with me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's important. Communication builds trust in the relationship. When we got married, social media didn't exist, So I know today it's very challenging for young couples. You've got all of this distraction related to social media. And my advice to you is just, if you use social media, that's fine. It can be a distraction for your relationship, though. So tune it out when you need to and focus on the relationship, because you're not really going to find a lot of support out in the world. The world is kind of broken. We know that, right? So trust God and trust your spouse to build that relationship together. And that's more important than any FaceTime that you're going to have on your phone or your computer.
Fun and humor, too, are important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just the other day, I opened the slider to a bathroom in our house, and she's standing right there. It's in the dark. It scared the bejeebies out of me. But I love that.
I put my nose as close to the sliding door so that when it would open, I'd be right there. And he jumped out of his skin, which was awesome. I didn't say boo because I knew that would be going too far, and he might fall. And,
Right.
So anyway, it was fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and occasionally I let her beat me at cornhole, and things like that.
Right.
Actually, she beat me the other day.
I did.
It's amazing.
I did. Yeah.
I walked away just, with my tail between my legs.
And occasionally he just lets me win, but that time I won legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And early on, getting back to the early years, because, we were married within about 6 months, we came from different backgrounds. So we realized one day that, hey, it's important for us to do some things together.
Oh, yeah.
Extracurricular activity, because we didn't have any sports in common. I played racquetball and a little bit of tennis and had, played a little bit of golf, not much. So we together decided we need to try some things that we can do together.
Yeah.
And the result is you're spending time together, which is important.
And we were still learning each other. So we tried tennis. But when the tennis ball hit me on the head, he's like, how does that happen? So I'm not good with eye-hand coordination. So tennis was kind of out.
Yeah, and I wasn't as patient at that point in my life as I am now.
Yeah.
I was used to our friend who played racquetball at a
and she would beat him,
pace.
and he was great at it.
Yeah. So I
was not.
I learned from that experience.
Then we tried golf, and I could hit the ball straight, not too far. Except that when he was having a bad day, I didn't really like who he became on the golf.
Right. So that was a problem.
I was like, I don't. If it's a good day, it's okay. But yeah.
So, I didn't want to do something that I needed an intervention afterwards.
Right. So, I think we tried a couple other things. He's a runner. I run a little bit, not like he does. But we landed on scuba diving. And we became dive buddies and did that for a number of years, which is really fun. We'll probably hope to do it our last dive at the Great Barrier Reef if we can get back down there at some point. So, and then we cycle together now, and
we did
kayaking,
motorcycles
camping,
together.
motorcycling,
off-road motorcycles together.
We did.
That was fun.
That was fun. We've done a lot of adventuring.
You agreed to do that if I did something. What was it?
So when we turned 40, he was doing a lot of dirt riding on the dirt in Arkansas, actually.
With the kids.
With the kids and with a group of people. And so we were turning 40, so I thought, I was riding 2 up with him at that time. I thought, I want to learn to ride myself. So I'll learn to ride for you so that we can keep riding together.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have to learn to ballroom dance for me. So he learned how to ballroom dance. We could kind of do a nice...
It wasn't too bad,
actually. We did it with some friends, and so it was great. That was a really fun thing at 40 when we turned 40.
So it's okay to negotiate on those things.
Yeah. So I was going to say, one of the other things we did early on that I think was really critical is that we didn't try to do everything like I was raised, and we didn't try to do everything that you were raised.
No, absolutely not, because you look at your parents and go, good job, guys. You didn't have a lot to work with. I mean, as far as tools and education and those things.
I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah.
Your mom.
It was a disaster looking back.
So we took...
God took care of us. We survived, right?
Yeah.
But it was nothing like today's environment where you have so much support and educational materials and marriage conferences to go to. Yeah. I mean, you guys don't have any excuse now. It's out there if you want it.
Yeah. My thought was take the best of one family and the best of the other family, and then figure out how you can mesh the two families that are coming together in marriage to make your family the very best it can be. And that's something I think we did really well. Nate's got great parents. His mom is my mentor as far as how to do life as a Christian woman. She's the grandma I want to be. Growing up, my mom died when we were young married, so I didn't have that. So his family's really stepped in, and his dad has been my dad. He's deceased now too. So, but the marriage of the two families is really important. Another thing we learned, speaking of blending of two families, even when you're dating, looking at that person, how that person interacts with their family, looking at how they interact with their friends, how they interact with you, how they interact with strangers. Is there a consistency among all those things in the person that you're wanting to build a life with? Yeah. Because that will tell you a lot about who they are, what their character is like. If they're on their best behavior on Sunday and not swearing and that kind of stuff, but then you see them when they get with the guys, they talk vulgar, or maybe they're swearing there, and you're like, I'm not sure if that's how I feel about that.
Right.
Talk about those things, but also look for that consistency of character in the person that you're looking for. and kindness. I'll come back to that because I think kindness is such a
so
huge,
important.
such a huge thing.
Yeah.
So are they the same same in the dark as they are in the day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were like that.
God likes consistency.
So we taught our girls, we've raised 3 girls, and they're all older and doing really well now, young adults themselves. 2 of them are married. One is not married yet. But Nate always had a prescription of he would tell our daughters, when you're looking for someone, you have to answer the 4 questions?
No,
Or
just 3 actually.
Yeah. You had to be able to say this about the person you were dating, answer these 3 questions. Do you remember them?
I think so. Let's see.
It's been a while.
So the first question was, and these are relationship questions. They're not just for a marriage potential. It's for really any relationship. So the first question is, does this relationship draw you closer to God? Mm-hmm. That's the first question.
Yep. Second question, does this relationship make you a better person? Mm-hmm. And then the third question, does this relationship... No, it's how does my family
right.
and the people who care about me the most, do they approve and are they on board with the relationship?
Does my circle of friends approve of this relationship?
Yeah,
that's the third one.
And we tell them if there's flags in those departments, then we need to be talking about that,
right?
And maybe rethink that relationship,
right? So if you're a committed Christian, follow Jesus. That first one especially is most important.
Yeah,
does this relationship draw me closer to God? If it's pushing you away from God, time to revisit.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It just means right now we need to rethink what's going on.
Yeah, that's good.
So with 3 teenage girls coming through the house, I had to learn something quick, in order to test the metal and make sure, we're all heading in the same direction together.
Yeah.
So
I think it's much harder for young people today to find those spouses and to
sure it is.
I think social media makes that more difficult. But I would, with the young people that we've had sitting in our backyard and hanging out with, one of the things that I think is different today is that it seems to me that when you meet somebody that you kind of like, you determine from that first moment, is this somebody I can marry? And I would kind of warn against that. I would say build friendships, build relationships, have people. That was what was so nice about our YA that we were involved in, is that we were encouraged to go out with both guys and gals in our Bible study and meet. The one that I was in was a discipleship group, and each week you had to meet with a different member just to kind of get to know them. And so you weren't dating, but you were getting to know people in a friendly environment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really healthy. Or go on group dates. Before Nate, I did a lot of group dating where a group of guys would make a fun date for a group of gals, and we weren't necessarily paired up, but we did stuff together, and we did really creative, crazy things. I think the guys one time prepared a dinner in a mall before there were lots of dining out there, and we went, and they had hired a string quartet to come into the mall and serenade us, and we were all just eating together at this one end. They'd arranged to have it. It wasn't at a restaurant, but we brought in, I think, some Chick-fil-A probably, something. But it was fun things, and there was some planning involved in it. And I think those helped me learn how to interact with guys without being in a, like, am I going to marry you type setting.
Right.
I think you've got to fight that urge to think that way and just work on being friends. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I think girls get caught up in trying to find that man so much. And I really encourage them to keep their relationships with other girls strong, because when you marry, this was something that was kind of, because I had a lot of guy friends, when Nate and I got married, that pretty much comes to an end because he's my guy. And some of those guys didn't get that at first, but I married a strong man, and they would say, like, we got back from our honeymoon, and one of my friends called and said, he called and said, hey, I heard you got in today. I thought I'd come by, see how you guys were doing. Well, we just got back from our honeymoon. He was only my friend. He didn't really know Nate.
And that was key. I didn't know him at all.
Right.
I mean, I looked forward to meeting him one day, but timing-wise, it wasn't good.
Yeah. And I loved Nate put his foot down and he said, this will change now because you've married me. I'm your man. And a guy coming over to see you is not really appropriate because I don't know him. So if I meet him at a church thing or something, that's fine. But I just know you've got to have those girlfriends that you can continue to talk to. And sometimes in dating, women will tend to alienate those girlfriends, and those feelings will be hurt because they're so focused on just the guy. You've got to try to maintain those relationships with the women, keep them involved. You're going to have lots of girlfriends throughout your life, but you're going to have one main man besides Jesus.
Amen.
One main man. I'm glad you're my main man.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I have something, and I'd like to speak just directly to the women. And this is really on the topic of purity. If you are, and I'm just going to be frank and blunt, if you are a virgin, celebrate that and stay walking in that. God will provide a godly man for you. And he will be above and beyond all you can ask or even imagine. But walk in your virginity. Don't let the world and all the messages that come in that say, no, just give that up. It's not worth it. You can have a lot of fun. Don't buy into that, because Nate and I were lucky in that we did keep ourselves pure.
We did. Yeah.
And when you do that, the richness of your physical life together, your sexual life together, is so fun, because the only person that ever enters your mind is your man.
Right.
But then let me just say, because it's so hard today to do that, many of you may have already crossed that line. And just from our personal experience, we have a couple daughters that crossed those lines. And one of them came back to the Lord, and she recommitted her life kind of like to a second virginity. And she walked that out for a number of years before she met a man who was keeping himself pure for his wife. And he married my daughter, who didn't keep herself pure, but had come back to the Lord to that second purity. And so I just want to say, even at that, sometimes she struggled a little bit with, and they struggled as a couple a little bit with it.
Sure.
But there's such a sweetness there. He loves her like Christ loves the church, just like Nate loves me. Those men are there, and they will love you regardless of what your past is. But be the right person now. Right. Walk out in your virginity, whether it's brand new to you or whether you're committing to it again today, or maybe you're already living and sleeping with a boyfriend and you go, my heart is being touched right now. I think this is what God has for me. You guys can separate for a time from that sexual relationship and then come back in marriage. I've counseled so many women, and there's such a sweetness when you take that break and you come back and you say, you are my man. You're the only man now in my life.
Right.
And I think God honors that. He brings healing into that. In the women that I've counseled, I can't tell you how many women that I've known that will say, sometimes I'm now married, but I have this past, and I'm sleeping next to my husband, and for a minute, I don't know if it's my husband or someone else for a second. And that's a reality that happens in our minds when we've had other partners. But God can be in that. Talk that through with your husband. Cry out to God. He can remove that, and over time, I believe He will bring complete healing to that. But purity is a huge part of marriage, and it builds trust.
And today's message from the world is that marriage is, okay, but maybe taboo, not as important as it used to be. don't believe that lie. That is a lie that Satan would like you to know. God's plan is still solid.
Yeah.
He knows how we're made, how we're wired, how we work best together as man and wife, and he has a plan for you. So lean into that, trust God, and he will lay that path out before you like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So God is real. He's on your side.
And you guys need to keep yourselves pure too. You know, if you're not doing that, you may be sleeping with somebody else's wife, which is a form of adultery, really.
Right.
So keep yourself pure and make that commitment to a second virginity if that's what you need to do. But walk that out, because God has such an amazing plan for our lives and for our marriages in the area of sexual fulfillment, and it's a blast. But it's freedom.
True freedom, comes from following God's plan.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yay.